Welcome to Tabletop Gaming Guild. Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experiences and memories that playing games with friends and families can create. Today we'll be talking about hidden movement. And you couldn't see this because this is an audio podcast, but I was hiding. I was super stealth at the meantime.
We actually had no clue where he was.
Yeah. James
was sweating bullets like he usually is, and yeah.
Just
even
popped
James,
out of a box for no reason. I was like, oh.
even James' traitorous power could not beat Nathan's stealth.
I saw the exclamation point above Peter's head.
I'm not very stealthy.
Hidden movement is defined by BGG as movement occurs that is not visible to all players. That's not really a very helpful definition. In general, hidden movement is most often it's one versus many, where you have one person who has a shield and they have like a map behind their shield and they are recording the locations they're moving to, and the other players are just moving around the map trying to find that person. And it's a lot of deduction. You know the ways that person can move, the actions that are available to them, so you're trying to minimize their options as well as, triangulate their position.
So what is an example of your favorite hidden movement game?
Okay, if we're starting with my favorite, that'd be Letters from Whitechapel, which is pretty much the definition of hidden movement game. It is pure, it's very pure in that you got a map, you have Jack the Ripper is the bad guy that the police are trying to chase down. Jack the Ripper can move along these numbers, spaces, and he's recording what numbers he moves onto. And he has a few special abilities where he can go an extra space or he can cut through a city block using the special abilities, but he has to announce that he's using that special ability. And meanwhile, the police are moving around the map and searching these numbers, and they can see if they search a number that he was at one point in, that person has to tell them they at one point were in that spot. They could currently be in that spot, but all they have to say is, at one time I was in that spot. And eventually the police have to say, oh, I'm pretty sure you're there. I'm just going to rest there instead of searching. Has anybody else played this game?
I have.
I have not.
I have not played it, but I've seen somebody online either play. It was either Letters from Whitechapel or Whitehall Mystery, which my understanding is they're fairly similar games. The theme is exactly the same. It's still Jack the Ripper, still hidden movement, but one is maybe slightly newer. I think Whitehall came out in like 2017, where Letters from Whitechapel came out in like 2011, but it was like I don't know if it was a new edition of the game or if it was just a slightly pared down rule set for the game. But I've seen it played online, and I think it was the first hidden movement game that I've ever heard of, and would like to play it, but I have not yet.
Yeah, I definitely want to play that game too, and I think that it would be up Peter's alley because I think Peter will really like it.
I enjoy some social deduction things. I like the one versus many. I think that's usually pretty enjoyable. Dan, what was your thought when you played it?
I have played this game, unfortunately, only once. It was with a group of relative newbies in the game. The person who owned the game took it upon themselves to play as Jack the Ripper, but even they had only played it once before. So we were all very, very green in terms of the rules mechanisms involved. But I found it to be an enjoyable experience. In the Letters from Whitechapel, you go through several nights, and each night there's a murder. So you know where Jack the Ripper started because they started at the murder site. And then you, as the investigators, sort of travel towards the murder site, trying to figure out where he's been. And then you have to try to follow his trail back. And, the first night, I don't think it's possible to catch him, but you can get a better idea of where his hideout is. And he always has to return to his hideout each night after a murder. So you slowly narrow down where he's headed back to over the course of the game. And it's really the last or second to last murder where you actually have a shot at catching him.
Yeah, well, it is very hard to catch on the first night. It is possible. But what makes it harder on the second night, not only have they police narrow down where your hideout is, because that doesn't change. In the future nights, you actually have to do more than one murder.
Yeah, there's one event, I think, somewhere in the middle of the game where instead of a single murder, there's a double murder.
Yep.
I will say real quick that the predecessor to that game was Scotland Yard. which is the quintessential hidden movement, classic example of a hidden movement game, which I agree with BGG on that. I did get to play that one. You could tell that Letters from Whitechapel is better than Scotland Yard because it actually improved upon it a lot. Scotland Yard itself is fine. It's a little clunky. It's a really old game. I don't remember when it came out. Let's see. 1983 came out. And one of the players plays Mr. X, and you try to get away from the other players, and Mr. X's movements are hidden, and you try to track them down and do it. It's very random, the game. But again, it's from 1983. I just wanted to mention that one as the quintessential one. And before Nathan goes into his next game here, I will talk about the worst hidden movement game ever created, in my opinion, because I'm horrible at it and I get frustrated. And that is Captain Sonar.
Okay.
Captain Sonar can play up to 8 players. 4 players on a team, and each of them have their own roles. They will, in real time, scream at each other, and then someone dies. That's the game. No, I'm kidding. So
I don't think you're doing this game justice.
I was like, yo, yeah.
So
everybody screams, then somebody dies.
yeah, pretty much that's it. No, so it plays up to 8 players, and it's best with the highest player count. Each person's going to take on a job. Whether you're going to watch the sonar, you're going to be repairing the sub, or you're the captain, and you're trying to maneuver through this obstacle course that's an ocean. The opponents are going to have their own little transparent map so they know where they're going, but they also know that person's listening to, because they have to say their directions out loud, left, right, up, down, and they're tracing a path. And there's islands and stuff on these maps, so they can move around like your little sheet, the clear sheet with your movements, and they can narrow down where you are from that, because you can't do certain maneuvers because you can't go through an island or anything like that. So, and the other thing is every time you're doing this, you're also getting wear and tear on the ship. So eventually you're going to have to do you'll be restricted to certain movements, or you'll have to surface to repair. It's really fun, not real time for me. Like, I like it not real time. I do not like the real time version at all in any way. I don't like real time games. And I really don't like this real time game. You just get that one group that's had like 15 energy drinks, and you're just like, just slow down. It's also a really well produced game, and it was a very popular game. Came out, and then they also had a smaller box version that came out in the Target stores, which I think went up to 4 player or whatever, so you could play half the player count, because Captain Sonar actually doesn't do very well, or isn't as fun with lower player counts. It's a really good high player count game.
Yeah, I would agree totally on this. It's a popular game, but it's because if you go into it as a party game and you enjoy party games, you probably like this. But if you like hidden movement games, this has the hidden movement mechanic, but it almost completely obscures it, and it's almost irrelevant. Everything that I like about hidden movement is gone in this game, because you're not doing stealth. You're actively announcing all your movements. It's just whether they can keep track of where you're announcing that you're going. So,
well, they also have to figure out where you started.
Yes, that's true.
So if they can figure out where you started and where you can go, so there's still some deduction that you're going to have to do. If you wait until you know for certain, they probably already shot you, and I think you get hit 3 times, the game's over.
But the deduction's relatively easy. It's just a matter of whether you heard all the instructions right. Usually it's like, if you get one thing wrong, you're out of it for a while until you can figure out your mistake and use future information to realize you made a mistake and fix it.
Yep, unless they're too far away and they surface, and then that clears that, and then they can pick a different location. There's stuff. It's not like Scotland Yard or Letters from Whitechapel, and it's a little different, but it's still, I would still consider it hidden movement. May not be like the perfect example, but
technically it is, but I just feel like it loses the things that make hidden movement a strong mechanic for me.
So a game we've all played that has a strong hidden movement mechanic in it is Fury of Dracula.
Yes, we have all played this. Yeah, we have not all played all at the same time yet, right? I can't remember.
So, I don't think I've ever played with you guys ever.
Okay, but we all have played it.
Yeah, we've all played
it.
And
I think this is the only hidden movement game I've ever played. I think is this one. I don't think I've played any of the other ones that I saw listed. I love Fury of Dracula. Like, it took me a bit to get into it, because just the learning of it. I think I played it maybe 2 times and just wasn't really feeling it those first couple times. But then Nathan and I had a one-on-one session playing it that just it got really interesting and a lot of fun. Since then, I've played it multiple times, the digital adaptation just by myself, just to keep learning the game and keeping it fresh in my mind. I really enjoyed the game. I love the theme. I like Dracula. I think it's a cool story, and I feel like they did a pretty decent job of adapting the characters from the Dracula story into the game itself too. So I think they did a great job with the hidden movement aspect, but they made it very thematic, which you guys know me, that theme is just about everything for me with board games. So
I don't like it as much as Letters from Whitechapel. Letters from Whitechapel is a much purer game.
okay.
But my actual biggest problem with Theory is the rule book. It's a fantasy fight game, and they have a habit of overcomplicating the rule books, taking simple concepts and make them a little bit unclear.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you have bonuses when in combat, whether you're doing it in dawn or dusk.
Right.
But then in the rule book, it doesn't always use that terminology as dawn and dusk. It says day, night.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that
They don't stick with the same
frustrating.
language the whole way through.
Correct. That's where, in the digital version, I do really enjoy it though,
Okay.
because the digital version, you can't make those mistakes. Because like once you play it through, oh, that's how it's supposed to work. And then it's much easier to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
All that rules unclarity, not knowing if you did the rule right goes away with the digital version. So in the future, I'm only really going to play this as a digital game.
Okay. Just for the clarity factor.
Yeah.
So, but you were saying that you think it doesn't do it as well as Letters from Whitechapel. Is that a theme issue, or is that, you said it was more
They've added more to it.
Okay.
Just by
So you-
adding combat mechanic, for example.
Right. So by adding the cards and the combat mechanics and everything, you feel like it's still hidden movement, but it's not a purely hidden movement game.
Right. It'll definitely appeal to a wider audience because of that combat and the excitement of that. But if you want something that's pure strategy and deduction,
Yeah.
you want to go for Letters of Whitechapel.
Okay. Okay.
Theory of Dracula definitely adds a chaos element. We actually didn't talk about how Theory of Dracula is played yet.
No. Yeah.
So what you do in Theory of Dracula, you have obviously Dracula moving around Europe and leaving cards, location cards face down, and under those location cards, he'll put encounters that if the vampire hunters go to those locations, they would reveal that he was previously in that location and they would do the encounter. But if they never hit that location, those encounters will eventually come off the board and trigger, and Dracula will get points or a bonus. But the key thing is Dracula's moving around. Vampire hunters are trying to track him down. And then if they do track him down, they're going to end up fighting him and hopefully killing him without dying first. If they die, they just go off to the hospital and get respawned. But
yeah. What did you think of the rock, paper, scissors style combat?
I liked it. So basically, the combat cards will have symbols on them. So it'll be like a claw or a fang or a fist, or there's a few others. So Dracula will play a card, the hunters will play a card. If they match, the hunters have effectively canceled Dracula's card, and it doesn't happen. If they don't match, both cards happen. Peter, what do you think of that combat?
I thought the combat actually worked really well, trying to strategize and guess the individual who's playing Dracula. What are they going to open combat with? There are, I feel like, a couple cards that are usually pretty decent to start the combat with, but knowing that, will the person say, well, I know that this is probably the ideal thing for me to do, but they're going to guess that that's what I'm going to do. So I need to hold off for a second. So that part of it, I think is fun, especially once you get really comfortable with it and the different cards that are in play. And that's the other thing, is like, as you play, you're going to get more cards that can do different things. So I enjoyed that part of it. The resource, when you're gaining the resources, you can do that in the morning or at night, but there's the added thing that if you do it at night, Dracula might get some cards. So there's a little bit of a slight push your luck there, but the overall combat system, I think, works actually really, really well. So, and I've had some kind of fun, tense moments. So I don't know, most of the time I enjoy games that get a couple of different mechanics mixed in there. I think I would enjoy playing Letters from Whitechapel or Whitehall, where it's more a purely deduction game and logic game. But I also do really enjoy games that at one point it's one thing, and then it kind of, I feel, at least for me anyways, it kind of seamlessly moves into a different style of game. Right now I'm thinking of like Dune Imperium, which goes from being a worker placement game to being a combat game, and it's, you know, and you have the aspect of you're building your deck, and so there's like the different mechanics all working together. And for me, that's just it's so cool, just because it blows my mind that somebody can take those different mechanics and make them mesh so well. But I do get the I think the draw of having a purely deductive game, and so that's why I really do want to play Letters from Whitechapel at some point, just so I can see what it is like to have a game that's very focused on that mechanic and that mechanic only.
I do have very sad news.
No.
Eric M. Lang has never designed a hidden movement game.
But I have very good news. You got to mention Eric M. Lang this episode.
I got to sneak it in.
You had to force it in, I think.
I pretty much had to force it in. I was like,
right on,
please have at least one game. Nope.
So this is apparently not a mechanic that he has played around with, I guess.
Yeah, so obviously. You know.
So I'm going to have to basically agree with what the rest of the panel has said with Fury of Dracula and Letters from Whitechapel, comparing and contrasting them as we are. I think, you know, I've also had some opportunity to play Fury of Dracula sometime, at least once or twice with the rest of the crew, and then once or twice by myself through the digital app. And they're both definitely hidden movement games. Letters from Whitechapel does seem to be more pure, I guess, in that once you solve the deductive puzzle that the hidden movement provides you, that's sort of when the game comes to a close. Because all you have to do is find the guy and know where he's at and be able to get there and say, hey, I'm going to arrest you. And then it's over. Or you don't do that before the game ends and he wins.
Right.
Whereas if you're a Dracula, you can track down Dracula, but there's this other like challenge of having enough gear and cards and hit points in order to take him out before he crests the doom track and spreads enough darkness and evil across Europe.
Yeah, I like it. So I'm just going to throw out there real quick, just to take us away from Fury of Dracula and Letters from Whitechapel. But there is a game that I would like to play that has hidden movement as a part of the game. It's definitely, again, it's not the full game, but I'm going to throw this out there. It's going to be a little weird, but so I saw this game first at Target, which again, it's, you know, it's not your local game store. And I know sometimes Target and Walmart gets a little with what games they're offering, but I have seen the Jaws board game that was released within the last couple of years and have seen it played online before. And I think it's just the first half of the game. This is a game where you are playing through the movie Jaws and you play in 2 acts. The first act is you are trying to locate Jaws as you are, you know, Sheriff Brody and whoever else the characters are playing as. And you're going around the island along the shore trying to figure out where Jaws is, because he's slowly but surely eating more swimmers out in the ocean. And when you get to the point that you can finally deduce, okay, this is where Jaws is, then you get to flip the board and now you're on the boat and you're actually fighting Jaws, is my understanding. So there's some hidden movement in that first act of the game. I don't think the hidden movement plays into the second act at all as you're fighting him on the boat. But again, thematically for me, this is a movie that I love, and I like being able to dip into those intellectual properties a little bit more than just the movie. So I was like, oh, this would be kind of fun. And it's a fairly inexpensive game. From what I understand, the quality of the pieces are not fantastic and all of that, but it sounds fun. And when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, this does have hidden movement. It's one that's on my list of games that I would like to play at some point. It's probably like, I'll probably play it once, have a fun time, but I don't know that I'll go back to it again. I don't know, but it still is one that's on my list.
It's actually a relatively decent game.
Okay. You've played it?
Yeah. It would be a game like if it was clearance at Target, I'd pick it up.
Okay.
But a couple things to remember with the game is when you're playing it through, you need to find the shark quickly. If you don't find the shark quickly and he eats too many swimmers, he's going to be very hard to beat or impossible.
Okay, so that makes him tougher on the second act.
Yeah, he gets more things that he can do. So it's fun. I think you could get because there's some variability into it. You could probably get a couple plays in it, but I would think it wouldn't last very long.
Yeah, it would probably get kind of stale after a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was initially excited when I watched a playthrough of this. I really liked the first act, but I didn't like how you go into the second act. The first act seemed like it wasn't too relevant other than getting you a more advantageous starting position, but it quickly becomes irrelevant in the second act. At least that was what it looked like to me, but I haven't played it myself.
The relevance is how quickly you get to the second act. If you take too long, you're in trouble. If you can do it pretty quickly, you're in a pretty good position, but you can get to the point where you just flip it and just die, but yeah, it is what it is. It's better than Oregon Trail.
So basically Betrayal on House on the Hill.
No, that's a much better game. Betrayal on House on the Hill is a much better game.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying the other way.
No, Betrayal on House on the Hill is a good game. I make a lot of fun of it. I just don't, it's matches.
He just likes to give me a hard time. That's all it is. He just likes to give me a hard time.
I just have a hard time playing it because Mansions of Madness exists.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that happens because board games replace other board games. It's evolution. So
yeah,
it's a good thing that designers are getting better. They're doing better things. It's just the way it is. All right.
Yep.
There's another hidden movement game out there that I wouldn't mind giving a shot to. Jaws is also on my want to try list eventually, but another one that I've heard good things about, but I've never actually had a chance to experience is Spectre Ops. So Spectre Ops is another one of these one versus many hidden movement games where one person is like trying to sneak in, I think to hack something. It's got like some kind of cyberpunk theme to it, right? And like everybody else is like on guard or basically trying to track the guy, hunt the guy down before he can make it escape.
I think Spectre Ops is probably the highest ranked hidden movement game. I don't know if it's higher than Fury or Dracula. I bet it is. I really want to play that game.
It is not even close to being the highest rank.
What is the highest ranked one?
War of the Rings?
I forgot about that one. Yeah, that would be.
And Captain Sonar's next.
Well, these people don't have good taste. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, I could see War of the Ring being up there. And it's not even the biggest component of that game either. It's just a thing in it. Which I bring up a challenge. One of my favorite games, I'd almost consider hidden movement. Although you don't remove, it's sort of reverse hidden movement. It is a amazing stress-filled game in the Star Wars universe.
I was going to ask.
Star Wars Rebellion. Now,
I was going to ask, is that hidden? It's not hidden movement though?
You technically don't move.
It's hidden deployment, right?
Well,
the Empire sort of deploys their units in public because they're the Empire. Everyone knows that there's a fleet here, but the Rebellion deploys their stuff in secret, right?
No, you can. Nothing's deployed in secret. You can deploy to the base, which you don't know where it is necessarily, or you can deploy to a planet or to the space around the planet. But the thing that I argue where it gets to hidden movement level is technically it's reverse. What you're doing is the Empire is like going through and they're pulling up probe cards for locations so they know ideas of where it's not, so they have deduction, and they're moving forward to try to get to the base. And the rebels have to be careful, very, very careful about their movement because they don't want to give away their base with their movement. So there is a lot of deduction and there is a lot on the rebel side movement-wise. And you can tell a lot from the rebels' movement and try to help deduce where the base is. So although the base doesn't actually move, you can take what the rebels do and how they play around in areas and how they react to you when you go certain places and trying to figure out where that base is and end the game for the Empire.
Yeah, it's a hidden setup, but mechanically it does function just like a hidden movement. And technically you can actually do a hidden move, but you have one card you can change where your base is, but that's a desperation act.
Yeah, that's like literally if you use that card, the Empire could just kick the door down and take it because you're just not sending any troops there. You're just getting a new location. So you don't have anything there. So they could just win the game. I mean, it's like you do that when you're like, oh no, I'm losing, last chance.
Yeah.
I mean, that does sort of beg the question, is there a game where, like, I don't know, units or something similar are deployed hiddenly, like where only one player knows where they're at?
There's a lot of war games.
That would fit like in the same bucket. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
I mean, you could all go all the way back to Stratego, which is going to be hidden units.
I mean, yeah, none of the movement is hidden, but the deployment is hidden.
Yes.
You don't know what your opponent's units are until you encounter them.
No, or if they move a special way, because I think 9s can go any amount of distance or whatever, but yeah. And bombs can't move, and yeah.
Yeah, bombs can't move. I don't remember any other special movement rules there.
But yeah.
But it's been a while.
But there's a lot of hidden movement war games. I just don't play very many war games.
Well, just so people know that hidden movement isn't all about death and combat and killing things. Nuns on the Run is a good hidden movement game that takes a more light-hearted approach.
I played this one with Nathan.
Yeah, Nuns Run is it's a little different in that it has a sort of a program movement element to it as well, where it's obviously it's a silly theme where you have these novice nuns that are supposed to stay in their room at night and decide, oh, they want to misbehave, go off and find a book they're not supposed to be reading, or things like that. And you have the regular nuns patrolling the yard, and they follow a patrol route until one of the nuns makes too much noise. So basically they're playing cards. They can move fast and risk making noise, or move slow and have a low chance of making any noise.
It's a pretty fun game. It's one of the lowest production value Mayfair games ever created.
Right. And it's also hard to get.
Yeah, I think you still have it, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I really like the fact that you can deduce the possibility of where the nun's moving.
Yep.
When you're playing the children.
Well, you pretty much know until you make too much noise and they can deviate.
Yeah, you have a good idea. I think. Do you know
they
all
have
the time?
They have a path. Yeah, they have a path that they have to take, and you can see what their path is.
But you don't know where their path they're at, right?
No, you do.
Okay.
So it's a reverse of the hidden movement. You have two nuns that are searching. It's usually played by one player, and they follow path. But you actually have up to 7 hidden movement characters that are running around. So it's a much more chaotic version of hidden movement.
Oh, that's right. And if they find one,
they have to find a certain number before.
Well, if they find one, something happens, and then right.
If they find one, that person goes back to their whatever the term is for their room, and they get some points. If they capture a certain number of people, they win. But if the one of the novices gets their item that they want to get and gets back to their room without being caught, they win. The one thing that I find that some people don't like is the nuns technically can capture the same person over and over again, because once they're captured, they go back to the room and then go out and get. So if you have a younger player that doesn't play well, you almost have to let them get away a little bit, so it's fair for the other people. So that's one little flaw to the game.
So I'm hearing this game explained, and all my brain is doing is wondering why no one has, with everything else that this IP has been turned into, why has not somebody done a hidden movement Harry Potter version of this, where they're going around Hogwarts and there's the Marauders map, and Filch is trying to catch the students as they're going around doing all the things that they do in the movies.
Hey, if you're hearing this and you make that game, we get a copy.
I'm just saying, like, all the adventures that they go on, all the places that they have to find that are hidden in the school. This could be multiple missions of like hidden movement, and that's all I'm thinking of right now. So
I would say, if you're hearing this and you make this game, not only we do need a copy, but we will do a full episode on this.
Oh, yeah.
That does sound like a good game.
I know, right?
Nathan, you mentioned that this Nuns on the Run game had an element of programmed movement, and that made me kind of wonder how close these two are to each other, because I'm trying to think of the other like programmed movement games that I've played, and a lot of them are like, oh, well, you set up like a hand of cards that indicate how you move, you put them face down, and then like maybe they're revealed one at a time in player order or something like that. And like, if it works like that, how I just described, in a way, the movement is hidden, right? Nobody knows how anybody else is going to move until the cards start being revealed, right?
No, the nuns are much simpler than that.
Okay.
Basically, you have a card that has their circuit that they're going to do. When you complete that circuit, you choose a new circuit for them to do. So you're really only occasionally making a choice. It takes maybe a dozen turns to actually complete each circuit. So yeah, there's not a whole lot of choices for the nuns unless the novices make noise. Then they can deviate from that circuit, which if you have a full player count, it's going to happen constantly. Nobody's played Last Friday yet, right? That's one I've wanted to try out, which is basically the cliche horror movie theme at a campsite, trying to hide while the murderer is coming around and trying to take you all out. If you've ever seen the game, what is that? There is actually a game, I think it's called Friday, that is almost exactly this game, a video game called Friday that's almost exactly this. It's just the campy style, campsite killer. I wonder if that's where the term campy comes from, because all these things came from a campsite. Started off at campsite killers.
I think that's pretty much what it is, because all the horror movies were like, at a camp.
Okay, I do have another hidden movement to talk about that's a little different, and it requires an app by Restoration Games called Stop Thief. Well, it's a re-implementation of the game by Restoration Games. So in Stop Thief, it's a bunch of investigators trying to catch a thief, which can be either handled by a player or by the app. Either way is fun, and it changes up the game a little bit. And basically, if it's an app if the app's handling the thief, it's just kind of going on a randomized route, and the thief is trying to go to different locations and steal things without getting caught. And it's sort of a timed element, but it's basically, I think, until the thief gets a certain amount of money that they've stolen. I don't remember exactly, but the thing that makes it interesting is the hidden movement is done through sound. So when you move, the app plays a sound based on which type of location you moved into. So if you move through a door, it makes a certain sound. If you're indoors, it makes a certain sound. If you're outdoors, it makes a different sound. If you go through a window, it makes a certain sound. If you go and commit a crime, it makes a different sound. And based on the sounds you're hearing, you have to deduce where that thief could possibly be.
Yeah, that sounds like a cool game.
And I was worried when I played it with my parents, and I was a little worried about that because they don't hear too well, but it is super clear. They didn't have any difficulty with it. So that was a great plus.
Given the fact that this is an older game that's been restored, I'm kind of curious about this one as well. I wouldn't mind giving this a shot.
It's a lot of fun. It's definitely worth trying. And it does give you some ways to switch it up a little bit. You have a couple different modes you can play in. You can play in the classic mode, which is closer to the original game. You can play where you have a single thief that's handled by the AI, or you can play where you have a group of thieves handled by the AI, and you have to catch all the thieves before you run out of time. And you can do the same thing with a person handling the thieves, where they're just clicking on the app where they moved, and it makes a sound based on where they moved. There really are not a lot of hidden movements. So that's another one we can talk about why there's not so many of them. In my opinion, it's just because it's a restrictive mechanic. If you use hidden movement, it kind of forces you into a deduction role, which doesn't appeal to everybody. The pure deduction, where it's lots of time just staring at a board thinking, I'll enjoy, but not everybody enjoys it. Also doesn't promote itself well. So if you see somebody sitting at a table playing this game in complete silence, you're a little less likely to go forward and say, oh, I want to try that game. Even I think it's a great game, but yeah, you're not attracting people.
One thing I do want to throw out, which I completely agree with you, is just to wrap it up here, is one game that I forgot the name of until right now that I really want to play at least once. That is a hidden movement game, because I really like the idea of having an Aliens style game as a hidden movement game. Now, this one per se isn't Aliens, the movie or whatever. I think they should make one like that. That'd be really cool. But this is Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space, which is pretty much like a low budget hidden movement game, but it gives you the feel of Aliens, where you're trying to sneak around the space station and not get eaten, which I think would make an amazing experience. So that's
I think it's the other way around. I'm sorry.
You're eating the aliens?
I was exposed just a little bit to that game because I watched a review at some point or another. The alien is the one that's performing the hidden movement. The crew members are the ones that are hunting it. In the early game, the alien is weak and can be destroyed by the crew members. Okay. If the alien lasts long enough, it will continuously evolve and the role will be reversed.
See, that's cool. Yeah,
I think this has a fear mechanic where as the humans get more afraid, the alien gets more powerful.
I can't say for certain because, like I said, I haven't played it myself either. But
yeah, I'm not sure. I think a pure alien game would be really cool too, where you have one player playing the alien and you are just running for your life and you're trying to escape.
the alien in that game, James, what was it called again?
Wait, is there a We're Not Alone or something like that? That it was like that?
No Escape? No. Oh, just Alone, I think is what it's called. There's something
Escape
like
from the Aliens in Outer Space.
Well, that's the one. But there's another one called Alone. That might be it. No, isn't.
So in the Escape from, etc., etc.
Oh, Not Alone.
The alien can actually, at the beginning of the game, have their pick of a couple different like special abilities, and that changes how they function or how they want to approach the end game.
Yeah, that game I definitely want to play. The other one's not a hidden movement one, Not Alone. That's the other one I was thinking of, but it's not.
Yeah, that was a Kickstarter one that I really was tempted to back and didn't, because I had just there was too many big games out at that time, so I had backed too much. If it was out right now, I would have backed it. But yeah, it's a card game where you are trying to escape an alien, I think. And unfortunately, as we mentioned, War of the Rings, but unfortunately, none of us have played it. And that is the top ranked hidden movement game. I really do want to get that to the table at some point.
Yeah, I definitely want to play that. I don't even know is that even for sale anywhere?
I think it is a little hard to find. Yeah, right now you can only get it on eBay for a ridiculous amount. But that's the only reason why none of us has played it, because it's hard to get. It's an older title. But anyways, did anybody have anything to add as far as like why you think this is an uncommon mechanic or relatively uncommon, underutilized?
The only thing I'll add to that is I think it's like you say, it's sort of like a narrow design space. If you're designing a game around hidden movement as a mechanic, your point of tension is itself the hidden movement. Mm-hmm. Which is why so many of these games are one versus many with asymmetrical powers, obviously, to make up the difference. Like most of these games, the one player that needs to stay hidden is usually the weak player because they need to stay hidden. If they reveal themselves too early, they're going to get they're going to lose the game. I mean, that's certainly true of Letters of Whitechapel, where, the Jack the Ripper is found, period. He's sort of lost. It's not as true in, say, Dracula. Dracula gets found early. The game turns in the second half where the players have to fight him, but that means that Dracula is less powerful also.
Yeah, and also it's kind of you're stuck. It's almost like the game's already there. You're just all you can really do is add a theme and maybe a slight twist. I imagine there are people that can be really creative and think of a way to really change it up, but the core of it is pretty structured and set.
Yeah, and a lot of these games, like you said at the beginning of the podcast, use some kind of notebook where the person doing the hidden movement is tracking their movement, so that there's a record of what went on, and that is some amount of bookkeeping that I feel like some people are just not going to be game for.
Mm-hmm. Usually it's pretty simple. You're just writing down a number, one single number on your turn. But the other difficulty with this game is...
it requires a lot of studious studying of the map. Because if you're going to have hidden movement, there's got to be a map involved, more or less.
The other problem is the same as in all asymmetric games is if you're teaching somebody, you pretty much have to play the one as opposed to many, and you're basically teaching them how to defeat you, which is kind of counterproductive. It can be a little bit hard to teach because of that. Ideally, you should have like an experienced person on the one side and a second experienced person on the many side to help out the new players.
But I think the verdict is that we need to see more modern designs with this mechanic.
Yeah, I would love to see something innovative and new with this. And, there are a lot of themes that would work really well for this. Obviously, you mentioned aliens and Harry Potter, but maybe that's... I'm sure we can easily come up with a few more.
No, make an alien one first and then Harry Potter.
Okay. You can do the Invisible Man.
No.
No.
Nope.
That would be appropriate.
Nope.
Yeah, but then, the Invisible Man has always been a bit iffy. Been a little problematic, in so many iterations of the Invisible Man, he just basically becomes a stalker, and I don't want to play a game as a stalker.
No, he's just a stalker. All right, well, that is our opinions on and thoughts on the hidden movement mechanic. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback for us, feel free to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild 2989, or our website at tabletopgamingguild.com. Don't forget to like, follow, and or subscribe. Tabletop Gaming Guild is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild LLC. All rights reserved.